Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. And as you're joining us, feel free to share and chat a little bit about yourself. We'd love to find out what library you work in and your position there, and maybe a favorite project that you're working on right now. So we invite you to share that in chat. And we'll wait just another minute or so as a few more people are joining us. But in the meantime, again, we invite you to share and chat what library you're coming from and your position and what's your favorite project that you're working on right now.
Good morning, everyone. I'll say hello too. Glad to be here with you all, and thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you to Nina for starting off this like pre-webinar introduction. And so we have on here the introductions that you can make with your library, your position, favorite project you're working on. This is always a fun time to see what other people are doing around your area, get ideas from each other. Really glad to see that Cassie's library just went fine free last week. So exciting. That's such an important trend and seems to be really making a difference with a lot of people in communities you serve. So it'll be interesting, Cassie, to see if you see the evidence of that over time. See that Andy's going to be working with local entrepreneurs. That's fantastic. Assisting libraries with building bilingual collections. That's exciting. I love the DNR for youth becoming certified as boat safety experts. That's like saving lives. Really interesting, Nina. So thanks for joining. We're just going to get started in just about a minute. We're just going to give a couple minutes for people to share their introductions of who they are and a project they're working on. So you can see those in the chat area, see who else is coming and what kinds of projects they're working on, get ideas from each other, start to get to know people or see people you haven't seen in a while in the online environment. One of the fun things about RIPL for us is people really get to know each other and get ideas from each other throughout our time together. So this is the start of it, for sure. And so people are pretty much entered in now, and we're going to give you a few minutes to go ahead and add your introductions, read other people's introductions, but we will also do our introduction to us. So I'm Sharon Morris. I'm an instructional designer at Colorado Mountain College, and one of the people that worked with Linda on starting the Research Institute for Public Libraries, having worked a lot with public libraries on different programs and services that really make a difference in their community, and seeing that we need to tell a better story about the power of the public library and communities. So, and using data to make those decisions that are critical to being really effective in a community. So really excited to join you for RIPL, and I'm going to hand it over to Linda to say hello.
Thanks, Sharon. And I'm Linda Hofshire, and I am just excited to be connecting with you all this morning. And I worked for about a decade at the Colorado State Library. And so during that time, Sharon and I had the opportunity to hear from a lot of library staff about their need to use data to inform their practice and to tell their stories better. And that's how the Research Institute for Public Libraries, or RIPL, came to be. I recently left the state library, and now I work as a consultant, and I both with training library staff as well as doing evaluation for libraries. So it's great to be here, and I'm going to turn it back over to Sharon.
Thanks, Linda. And thanks to you guys who are posting your introductions in the chat area, letting us know where you're coming from and some projects you're doing, what you're excited about. And we have a big thank you that we want to give to our hosts and sponsors, the South Carolina State Library. The folks at the South Carolina State Library have been really excited to bring RIPL to your area for quite some time. And we've been delayed on multiple occasions because of the pandemic. We are here again during the middle of the pandemic. And we just really appreciate the dedication and persistence, as well as the vision of the South Carolina State Library in wanting you to learn the skills for evaluation for your library. So thanks for hosting us and sponsoring the event. So let's just talk a little bit about this webinar, and then we'll talk about our time together. Like, the purpose of today is to share some tips with you about how to prepare for RIPL. We call the Research Institute for Public Libraries RIPL for various reasons, but we'll just refer to it as RIPL from now on. And we want to give you some tips before we get together in a couple of weeks, orient you to some of the concepts that we'll be talking about together, as well as give you opportunities, as I said, to meet each other through that chat area and through some of the discussion that we'll be having during this time, mainly using the chat area. So with that in mind, with the purpose of the webinar, let's go ahead and share with you a few things about what RIPL is and what it isn't. First of all, it isn't a one size fits all. You know, people come to RIPL for different reasons. They come with different backgrounds and experience. Some people might have done some things with evaluation. Some people might be completely new to their position, or maybe they've worked in a library for a long time, but they haven't really dealt with gathering data or doing anything like that. And so we keep that in mind, and we try to make all the activities something that anybody, depending on where you come from, that you actually bring things that you know to the table, and that you get where your next step is. So not everybody comes from the same knowledge base, and not everybody ends at the same knowledge base. We're all just kind of learning together and from each other and getting to each person's next level of learning about evaluation. So with that in mind, there are 5 tips for you to get the most out of that experience. And we like to use dogs because, you know, they're super friendly. And one is to rest up ahead of time. This is a good tip just to kind of get a lot of rest and relaxation so that you'll be ready. It's a data boot camp, and so it's intense. It starts really early. It goes throughout the entire day. We give you some breaks, but it's very interactive, a lot of activities and stuff like that. So you want to have a lot of energy coming into this. You're going to be meeting a lot of people, working on different activities. It's not a sit and get situation. So I want you to feel energetic and energized as you go into those 2 days of the data boot camp. And because it is so immersive with so many different activities and conversations and ideas and creativity going on, it's important for you to plan to leave your work behind. So what that might look like is letting people know that you're going to be at the Institute. It's going to be hard for you to check your email. Take those breaks, plan to take those breaks and not be on your email during a break, just getting outside and getting fresh air and walking around looking. I like to look far away just for my eyes' sake. Those things can kind of help you. And so setting that up ahead of time to leave that work behind will help you to just really immerse yourself in that time frame and take care of yourself during that time. There is a bit of pre-work, which Linda will get into. And so it's really good to take, the 30 minutes or hour that it might take for you to just kind of look over some things ahead of time so that you feel ready to go when we're together. And if you have some projects that you've been doing, if there's something that you think is really cool in terms of what you've been evaluating or how you've been communicating the impact of your library, we will have a station for you to bring that and show it off, share it with other people so that they can, we call it R&D for rip off and duplicate instead of research and design. And that station will be an area where you can get ideas from other people and they can get ideas from what you've been doing. So Linda will give you some examples of that, but I think that's really a fun thing to do for you all. To plan to do ahead of time, bring something with you. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to Linda for the next segment.
Thanks, Sharon. And yeah, if you didn't see in chat, I just put in some descriptions of what items you might want to share. Those could be surveys that you've administered in your library or a board report, an infographic, anything that just shows how your library has used data. And one thing I'll mention is that we really recommend that you maybe only bring 1 or 2 copies. And so they can be displayed on the table, but then people can take pictures of them. Sometimes in the past, people have brought lots of copies, and then unfortunately, those don't all get taken. And so we hate to waste your materials. So again, we just recommend maybe just bring a copy or 2, and then we'll encourage others to take pictures of them for their reference. Okay. The final tip is that we really encourage you to dive in and embrace the structure of RIPL. That's going to help you to get the most out of the event. And so let me describe a couple of ways that you can make that happen. And so the first is just to be prepared, as Sharon has already mentioned, for the fact that there will be a lot of activities. So this, again, is not going to be just sitting and hearing somebody lecture the whole time. We will have a lot of opportunities to practice what we're learning at our tables with various activities, as well as to engage in various small group discussions. So be prepared for that. And then also just wanted to mention groups. And so over the course of the 2 days, you're going to be assigned to a small group of other people. So those will be the ones sharing your table with you. And we do that so that gives you the opportunity to connect with other library staff working in your region who might be in a similar size library or a similar position as yours. But we find that sometimes people are a little reluctant at first, like, oh, I had my people that I came with, but ultimately this tends to be really highly rated. People love having these groups where they're able to connect with new people and share ideas. So just to give you a feel for that's what this will look like. Okay, just want to cover a few logistics. And Tiffany, I think you're on, so feel free to correct if anything is wrong here. But as you know, the event is occurring at the Hilton Columbia Center. And our schedule, so breakfast will be available starting at 7:45 each day. And then on the first day, registration will be open at 8. That will just be a time when you can check in, get your materials, and get seated. So that'll be anytime between 8 and 8:30. And then our workshop will run from 8:30 to 5 with an hour for lunch, as well as a break in the morning and a break in the afternoon. Similarly, breakfast will be available again starting at 7:45 Wednesday morning, and then again we'll run from 8:30 to 5 for the workshop. So that is what we're looking at. And thanks, Tiffany, for confirming. Let me pause now and just ask if there's any questions about the material that Sharon and I have covered so far. feel free to share in chat or use your audio. Either is great. Okay, well, I encourage you, if questions do pop up as I keep going, feel free to enter them in chat. Oh, yeah, so I see a couple questions, and Tiffany, if you're with us, I know that you're multitasking because you've got some events happening this week too, but we've got a couple questions that I think I'm going to let you answer. One is any COVID precautions that will be taken, and then the second is, will the parking pass be available at registration?
Okay, yeah, thank you for handing those over. In terms of, well, I'll answer the easy one first. We will get parking passes. I'll send more information out closer to the event, but yeah, that will be available, and we will facilitate that for your convenience. So no worries about the parking situation. As far as the COVID precautions, there is not at this time a mask requirement, but it is strongly encouraged per CDC requirements. The hotel has a link to all of their cleaning and disinfection policies. We're also going to try and make the meals and snacks as portable as possible so that you can like take them to where you're comfortable, go sit outside and get some fresh air, not have to eat from a buffet kind of thing. And the room is very large, so we will plan, very, smaller groups per table spread out so that we're not sitting too close to one another. If you need more specific details than that, email me and we will we'll let you know. Now, per the mask thing, we do not at this time have a requirement, but if the city of Columbia institutes a mask mandate for the city, since this is in city limits, we would be subject to that. So they have not at this time, but if they did, that would be applicable, and we would let you know that. And we'll have hand sanitizer and masks and whatnot there for you. Other questions?
Great. Thanks, Tiffany, for answering those questions. We appreciate it. And thank you, Sarah and Nina, for bringing up those topics. Both are important. All right. So the next thing that we want to turn to today is just to give a very brief introduction to data and evaluation in terms of kind of the evaluation process that we will be working through during our 2 days together. And this is just so that everybody can hit the ground running when we get to the event. So hopefully we'll be on the same page in terms of how we are defining evaluation and are going to approach it over these 2 days. The other topic that you'll see there, research ethics, that's a topic that is very important, but we don't have time to get into during the 2 days. So Sharon is going to share some resources a little bit later where you can get more training on research ethics as well. But let's start with an overview of the evaluation process. So I have a question for you all, and I'll invite you to share in chat. And that is just, how do you define the word evaluation? And feel free to share, like, what's the first word that pops up in your mind when you hear that term, when you hear the word evaluation, or how would you describe it to somebody else? Great. So I see, yeah, to analyze something. Assessment of the value. Yeah, I like Sarah's phrasing with the questions. How much did we do? How well did we do it? Is anything better? Mm-hmm. Nina, yes. That is often the case in organizations that, yes, that evaluation is tied to funding. A lot of grants require an evaluation component. All right, so I'll let you keep thinking about evaluation, but as you're doing that, let me share a definition of it from the University of Washington Office of Educational Assessment. So you can see evaluation is the systematic assessment of the processes and or outcomes of, in our case, maybe a program, a project, or a service with the intent of furthering its development and improvement. The primary purpose of evaluation is to provide timely and constructive information for decision-making. And so you can see that picks up on some of the themes that you've already mentioned in chat. And I like in this definition that its evaluation is identified as systematic. That absolutely is true. The point is for it to be kind of a social scientific process by which we assess something. And also that there is a purpose for it. We're not just doing it for its own sake, but we're doing it so that we can be better. It provides timely and constructive information for decision making. So that is how we're going to view evaluation as we go through the 2-day training. And so in libraries, you know, some of the common things that we might see people evaluate are trying to identify what is the problem or the issue or the needs, perhaps in our community, or how do we compare to our peers, to other libraries? Is this program or project or service worth it? Why aren't people using the library? And then a real biggie, I think, in libraries is over the past several years is what outcomes did our users experience from participating in a program or using a service? So really getting at what change occurs in our users after they've experienced our services or programs. And so that last question is really where we're going to focus a lot of our institute content. And so let me ask, before I go into that a little bit more, but based on the definition we've just talked about with evaluation and those examples I just shared on the last screen of the types of questions that libraries might ask when evaluating, what is currently being evaluated in your library or something that's been done in the past, either way, but I invite you to share in chat. So maybe you run a customer satisfaction survey, or you're doing some type of evaluation of your public programs. Oh yeah, so Andy is the reach of our virtual programs. So think about what is happening in your library, either currently again, or perhaps something in the past that is being evaluated. And I invite you to share that in chat. Great, so impact of community service, whether our programs match up to our strategic plan goals. Yeah, so that's great. So you're actually measuring whether your strategic plan goals are being achieved. Yeah, branch operations in terms of safety, that's a biggie. And Jimmy, I see you've got some usage measures there, attendance and circulation. Employee performance, great. Thank you for sharing those examples in chat. So for the event, and so now this is kind of the pre-work that Sharon had alluded to earlier, we want you to bring an evaluation project. And all that is a public program or service that you want to evaluate. So what we would like you to do ahead of the event is just think about what program or service in your library that's public facing is something that you would want to spend some time thinking about at the Institute and developing a plan to evaluate it. And so let me share a few examples that people have brought to past events. So a Maker Mondays series, which is makerspace programs, virtual story time, job skills programs, ESL tutoring, and community conversations. So those are just a small handful of the wide variety of programs and services that people have brought in the past, but hopefully that can help to start your thinking. So also, as you're thinking ahead of time about what program or service you would want to evaluate, we encourage you to get specific. And so you can see here in this table some examples of what that means. So let's say that you're interested in evaluating your technology programs. So let's get focused here. Let's narrow it down. Which program in particular? And so maybe it's your basic tech skills for seniors programs. Similarly, let's say, we really want to evaluate the impact of our outreach. Okay, let's pick something specific within that. Maybe we're doing a STEM program series at Head Start centers. So that's getting down to a very specific program. Or let's say we want to do children's services. Again, what within children's services do you want to focus on? Here we say summer reading. Depending on the scope of your summer reading program, that might be even more specific, a particular age group or one aspect of the things that you offer for your summer program. The idea is we want to get as specific as possible because that is going to enable you to develop a really focused evaluation that would be realistic to carry out when you get back to your library. And so I see a question about from Jimmy, thanks Jimmy, about evaluating user demographics for our users compared to the recent census. So what we're really looking for here is some type of a public facing program or service that as opposed to an analysis of available data. And so the reason why is because during the 2 days of the Institute, we will talk then about how you would collect data from your users, meaning things like surveys or interviews or focus groups in order to conduct your evaluation. And also because we're focused on outcome-based evaluation for this. So that means what changes are we looking for in our users as a result of experiencing our programs or services. And so that means that we need to be looking at experiences that would provide outcomes. So Jimmy, let me know if that doesn't make sense. Happy to discuss this more offline as well. But what we're looking for is something that your users would experience so that we can think about what are the outcomes, what are the changes that occur in the users because of that experience, because of that program or that service. And then kind of what steps would we take to evaluate. So to that end, what we're going to be doing across the 2 days is walking through each step of the evaluation process. And so you can see here that we have 5 steps. And the first one is identification. And that means like honing in really specifically on your topic and what exactly it is that you're trying to know. And I see Wanangwa, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name. I see your question and I will come back to that in just a moment. But so we're starting with identification. So let's get really specific on what is it that we want to learn through the evaluation. Then we get it to planning. So we'll work on developing a plan for your project to be able to answer the questions that we have about it. From there, we'll move into data collection. So that's thinking about what types of data collection methods might we use, perhaps surveys or interviews or focus groups, in order to be able to evaluate our program or service. Then we'll move into analysis of those data. And then finally to data use. That is my favorite part. So you have your results. What can you do with them? How can you improve your program with them? How can you advocate with them? How can you use them for decision making? So this is what we will walk through over the next, or during our 2 days together. So specifically on Tuesday, our first day together, we'll get into kind of what do you need to know? So this is like, how do we plan out our evaluation projects? As part of that, we'll talk about the data trifecta, and that means the types of data that you can collect in order to do your evaluation. We'll also consider community needs assessment that day, and then we'll finish up by talking about data collection methods. So talking about conducting such things as surveys, interviews, or focus groups in order to evaluate your program or service. Then the second day, we'll come back Wednesday morning and start with data analysis. So getting into, once we've got, these raw data, what do we do with them? And don't worry, it's very friendly, whether or not you like numbers. And then we'll spend the rest of the second day talking about how we can then use those results. So we'll talk about using them from the perspective of management and strategic planning, as well as for communication. So visualization, as well as storytelling. So that's where we will be going over our 2 days together. Okay, and so looking at Wanangwa's question, so earlier I asked for you to share an example of something that is being evaluated in your library. That was just for the purposes of discussion during our time together today. So just to kind of hear from each other what is currently being evaluated on at your library. So that was just for today. But for the event, what we're asking is that you think of something in your library that you want to evaluate, a public-facing program or service. And a public-facing program or service. And then and come with that in mind. And that is what you will develop a plan for during our time together that you would be able to go back and execute once you are done. The R&D board, that is just a place to share any examples of existing data products you might have. So if you use surveys to, for customer satisfaction or for your programs, you could bring an example of that to share. Or if you have an infographic that has, an annual report or, or a board report. This is just to share, to inspire ideas. It's always helpful to see what other libraries are doing. And so that is what was meant by the R&D board. And so that is separate. And as Sharon mentions, that's just an add-on. There's not a requirement, but it's just, if you have something from your library that you'd like to share, we'd love for you to bring that. Yes. And so, that's a perfect example of if you have a survey from something you've already conducted, like the strategic plan, just, bringing that just to share it with others for inspiration purposes. And then separately, you're going to want to identify a program or service that you would focus on over the 2 days for your evaluation. So thank you for asking about that so that we could get that clarified. All right. So actually, before I go to that, sorry, let me go back a couple. Any other questions about the content that I just covered? Yeah, so Jimmy, if you're asking about for the R&D station, so the idea is that this would be physical things that you're sharing. So like a printout. And again, just bring 1 or 2 copies, and with the idea that people would take a picture of it if they wanted to remember it. Usually what happens if people bring a lot of copies is that a lot get left behind. And so we don't want to waste your materials. So we would just suggest bringing a copy or 2. Those would be displayed. And then, oh, okay, you're asking about,
Sorry, yeah,
you're asking about the evaluation project?
yes.
Okay, you don't need to, like, it's really more of having something in mind. So if you want to like take notes about it or anything, that's great, but it's more just that like you have an idea formulated ahead of time. So it's like you come knowing, okay, I want to focus my evaluation on our new makerspace program series or something, and any other details that you want to remember, but it's really more just already coming with an idea in mind, if that makes sense. Thanks.
So yeah, I feel like I could offer a couple more examples for you for that project
Thanks,
that you want
Sharon.
to bring. And so, you know, you think about something that your library is doing that is impacting the public. It could be a program like a senior outreach program. Some of you mentioned you have a youth services program that you're doing. Anything like that. And the idea is that you could then walk through each of these steps of the evaluation project with that example project from your library. And so you don't have to have it all figured out before you get there. Actually, we're going to be using it as your example that you use to kind of step through the evaluation cycle that Linda showed so that you can learn those different techniques, but you have something to apply it to that actually relates to your library. So whether at the end of that, you go back and do that evaluation is up to you, but really for this today, what we want you to do is have something specific in your library that you can kind of use to really learn some of the skill set that then you can apply across the board with other services that you have in your library. So you don't have to have something big. It doesn't have to be really ambitious. You can scale it back to something really small. So, you know, and rather than evaluating all of your story times, maybe you want to evaluate the story times that you do on Saturdays or something like that. Like you can scale it down to something sort of small to walk through this evaluation process to learn all the different steps along the way. So hopefully that will help you think about what kinds of project you might want to choose for all of the different activities we're going to be doing throughout the 2 days.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon, for adding that point. And just again, to kind of reinforce that. So don't worry also about picking like the perfect topic, because again, this is really to get you to practice the concepts over the 2 days. You could easily apply them to something else then as you go back to your actual work. But this is just so that you have a tangible project to play with. All right.
Yeah. So, and there's a really great question about bringing laptops to work or pens and paper. And we do have a print playbook, and we will bring pens and, you know, have you, you know, kind of work through things that way. If you're the kind of person that learns best by laptop, then you can bring one. But we find that sometimes that kind of gets in the way of just jotting things down and then looking up and sharing things at your table with other people. So that's why we do the print thing. And there's brain research behind why we do the print and writing thing as well. But know that that is part of the Institute, that you don't have to bring a lot of technology with you.
All right. Well, I'm going to turn things back over to Sharon. I can get our slides to advance. There we go.
Thanks. Thanks, Linda. And so one of the things that is very important about doing evaluation when it relates to people, you know, whether you're conducting a survey or doing a focus group with people or doing interviews with people or whatnot, even doing observation of people, is that those people who are your subjects, they have rights, they have legal rights, and we need to be aware of those. And so rather than spending time on that, we've collected these videos, 3 videos. One is on protecting the evaluation participants' rights. Another is about patron privacy, which of course you're very familiar with in the library world. And then what does that look like when you're doing evaluation with people? So there's some tips on how to protect patron privacy with evaluation. And then the third one is about informed consent, which is how to inform them about what you're doing with the data that you're collecting from them, how you're going to use it, how you will secure it, et cetera, et cetera. So informing that and getting consent from them in order to do that prior to working with them. So those 3 videos on research ethics are really important as you think about whether you want to do something with you know, users of various types, getting input from them, being able to understand some of the ethical aspects of that ahead of time are really a value. So we'll be adding those videos to this link on the website for you. And so as we wrap up, just going to pause. Are there any other questions? Or I know we covered a lot in a very short period of time, and you can feel free to reach out to us otherwise. We'll share the link to the videos along with the webinar slides as Linda indicated for you. And we'll pause for other questions. And of course, you can contact us with questions at the email that Linda just posted as well. And then Tiffany is going to be emailing with further logistics on the details for the hotel, parking, etc. So the South Carolina State Library is handling a lot of the logistics, and then Linda and I and Rochelle, we are more related to the content of the workshop. So that's kind of a distinction between us. So that's it. And many thanks to Tiffany for all of her work and coordination during this time. So with that, we'll wrap up and thank you for participating. We hope that you gained some understanding of how to prepare for RIPL, what we're going to be covering, what kinds of things you can think about ahead of time, and how to be ready to join us on site for that interactive and experiential time. So thanks very much to the South Carolina State Library, Tiffany, and all of the folks there, Denise, etc., as well as the Institute for Museum and Library Services that has been really supportive of RIPL throughout the years and has helped us to develop a curriculum which we're going to be sharing with you. And
Thanks,
did you want to add
any
other thanks?
Yeah, no, just thanks everybody again for joining us. It was great to have such a good turnout this morning, and we look forward to connecting with you for the event very soon. Have a great day, everybody.